Hello and welcome to another live stream, a Modal Chat Play Session. I'm James. I'll be your host today. We got a great show lined up for you. Quite a bit to cover, actually. So I have notes. First off, we're doing another ASK.Video giveaway. So that's exciting. For those of you who don't know, ASK.Video is an online education community for creative computer users. The courses range from making music, recording, mixing, mastering, tons of stuff. Web, computer, programming. It's created by artists, it's for artists, and it's dedicated to help you realize your potential and learn new and inspiring skills. We're going to be announcing that at the end of the show. So what you should make sure you do is post at least one comment, and that way your name will be kind of registered in our database. So today we're going to be exploring the SKULPT, because I've been wanting to have the SKULPT on the live stream for quite some time now. It's a badass little synth, and it's very powerful for its size. I'm going to be playing it with the Cobalt here, but there's so much potential in that thing that I just wanted to kind of show off and show it off rather. And for those of you who don't have one or kind of always been interested in one. So we're going to be doing that for a little bit. Then we have a special guest, Eric Bateman from Keith McMillan Instruments. He's the CEO. I sat down and did an interview with him yesterday, so that's we're going to run that about halfway through the show. And then at the latter half of the show, I'm going to be going through pads and talking about how pads on the Cobalt and the Argon each have their own uses and how they can support a mix, a live mix, or a production, or a or if you're in a band, there's different uses for each. So yeah, a lot of fun. And then after that, and there will be some modal personnel in the comment section. So if you have questions, and this is chat and play, so ask away, and one of our guys will probably be able to answer your question. And as always, if you haven't already, hit like, hit subscribe, get in touch with Modal, and follow us. Hit that bell notification icon. So to start out with, let me show you the SKULPT. We'll do an overhead shot here, right here. But I'm actually going to go into the app, because that is going to give you a very good overview of what this thing can do. And those of you who have used the Modal app on a Cobalt or an Argon, this should seem relatively familiar to you. Except in the middle, there's not a mod matrix. The mod matrix is down here. It is configurable. As you can see, it's got destinations and sources, rather. And and I wanted to go through some of these custom presets here and kind of show you what a Swiss Army knife this thing can be for all sorts of things. I have them organized here. So first of all, it's one of the best basses. This is made by one of our internal guys and is just one of my all-time favorite basses. Now, of course, you can't use aftertouch and pitch bend on the small unit itself. That's why I'm playing on the Cobalt here. Later in the show, actually, we're going to be when I'm interviewing Eric Bateman from Keith McMillan. He's going to talk about a very special piece of hardware that has been optimized specifically for SKULPT. It was one of the first synths they optimized it for, so it kind of maps itself to different parameters, and then you can kind of change it on the fly. Okay, so one thing I like to do is, if you've seen any prior live streams, is I like to make rhythmic stuff. So this entire section is based on kind of rhythm sequence that I built, rhythm sequences that I constructed using just 2 LFOs. Let's try a different one here. So what's going on here? We got 16th notes, we got quarter notes, right? And then we'll look down here to kind of see what's going on. LFO 1, that's right there. That's doing quarter notes. So over here, this is going to be controlling the oscillator. We're going to have changes in the oscillator. Looks like going backwards, so it's probably turning, if I had to guess, it's probably going like this, something like that if we were actually to see it animated. did it for that reason. I use quarter notes a lot, mostly because I do a lot of dance music, and 4 on the floor just makes a lot of sense. It's going to have kind of a ducking motion naturally. And you don't even have to necessarily use a square. You could also use something like a sine. Same effect, right? And then you can get into kind of polyrhythms and syncopated stuff too. Oh, this one I like. 4 on the floor. It's not what you think. I believe this one's the triplets. Yeah. Like a shuffle. Xerox barrel. Okay. Right here, this is what's creating the polyrhythm. And what you can do simultaneously with that is you can assign this to some, like the LFO to something, and then also assign the mod envelope and create these long, kind of drawn out, evolving rhythmic sequences. And it's kind of like what you heard in the beginning if you had tuned in, you know, if you're with it from the start. I'll give you that preset again here. I think it's Mohawk. That one's the filter is doing the work on some of that too. Now, if you're looking around, you're probably too much different from. It's got some similarities to the both the Cobalt and the Argon. It's got a lot of, you know, it's got some virtual analog stuff going on. This is obviously a changeable wave shape. These are all very kind of typical of analog wave shapes. You got your sine, you got your sawtooth, and then pulse width, right? It completely pretty much cancels itself out, actually. If we go to in it, we'll probably hear it a little bit better. And thanks to some a tip-off from one of the inside developers, playing with the oscillators in this, starting in this shape, where it's basically nearly canceling itself out in pulse width form, it can do some really wacky stuff. So if you're sitting on a Sculpt, don't hesitate to go try this. There's an example right there. Get that FM modulated a little bit here. Maybe see what we can do with that. LFO 1 to FM. There we go. We got to speed it up a little, don't we? And let's sync it. So down here is kind of like a sync trigger toggle. So if you want LFO 1, 2, or the effects to be synced, you just turn it on there, right? So depending on the shape we select, we might actually start getting some rhythms out of this, because there's something going on here with the FM. You hear kind of a pop. So that's what I'm after. I want that to turn into kind of a rhythm. And yeah, big thanks to Luke for pointing out how much fun it is to play with this little, the oscillator in this state. That's our internal guy, one of our developers. Maybe we should increase the tempo, huh? Let's jump up to like 120. Another thing I like a lot about the Sculpt is the it's ring modulator, or ring modulation can be pretty much cued at any point in time. Here's where it gets fun. Let's use the mod envelope generator, or mod EG, or MEG as it's called on Cobalt and Argon. Let's use that to modulate wave, oscillator 1. Let's go the other way. So negative, it would mean we're pulling it this way, right? We're traveling back along its modulation path here. So let's do that, and then let's make a long attack. maybe, why don't we do this instead? Have it dive. Since we have this maxed out at 63 for the modulation amount, we know that it's going to be pushing it up to that. So we could probably start somewhere around here. Okay, let's dive into something else here. Another example of how this can be kind of a Swiss Army knife for your productions. Let's make a quick lead, and then let's make a quick bass. Oh, I'm going to start down low here. And this is really going to show off the filter more than anything. I always start around half the depth. This is modulation. I'm sorry, this is filter envelope depth. Pull the sustain down to 0. And we're probably going to boost that up eventually. And then pull the cutoff down. This is very similar to making a pluck. If you saw the quick dive or the live stream about progressive house, that's pretty much what we're doing here. Same concept. Now the sound completely disappears. So what do? We push the sustain back up so we can hear it. Well, I made a bass. I guess I thought I was going to do a lead first, but naturally I just made a bass. I guess we'll do lead next. In fact, let's just turn the bass into a lead when we're done with this. So we have 2 oscillators here. I haven't used the other one yet, have I? Well, let's switch over. Right now it's just a sine wave. This right here is the mix, right? I'm going to jump over to the far right, as you can see there. And now I know I'm hearing only oscillator 2 or wave 2. Well, look what we got here. We got white noise. Even better. So we could have them mixed in without any kind of modulation. Ooh, how do we get so low? We dive in an octave? Oh, that's right. What might be a little more useful would be to modulate the mix to kind of jump a little bit open from pan, what do you call it? Not panned, but mixed completely to oscillator 1. We could assign the mod envelope to kind of jump it up so we can hear a little bit of that white noise, but then to kind of return. So that way it's not always there, in the tail. Let's try that and see how it sounds. Yeah. If you want a more abrupt or hard hitting transient attack, there you go. And the nice thing about doing that when you're using this to modulate the mix is it really opens up Wavetable 2 to just become kind of a utilitarian oscillator, or basically it is the transient hit or the initial impact. And if you want to have a little bit of a release tail, you're doing more of a kind of an open bass, just make sure you match those two. This is the amp envelope right here. It's going to control whether it just seizes abruptly or if it's going to have a tail. And then this will be whether the filter allows it to stay open and have a tail. If we cut this off, it's almost like cutting this off. This filter closes right back. So it's why it's important to have some kind of similarity between these two, to have some consistency. Okay, let's jump up an octave or 2 and make this into a lead. Maybe a brassy lead. So oh, another thing I didn't show off. This is a really neat feature of the SKULPT. You can turn the LFOs into audio rate LFOs. And one of the coolest effects I've found so far is when you take, you turn it into audio rate and then have it modulate the cutoff. It's just, you just added another oscillator basically. Now we could have that on all the time, but what's more fun is to pull the depth down so it's not instantly audible. Now we have the option of queuing it in manually. So if we had an MPE controller like the Keyboard Pro 4 or the Q Neo, we could assign something like Mod Wheel or Aftertouch to increase the depth. and you would be able to kind of play it, interactively. Now you could still do that with the Fatar keypad and the joystick, but the nice thing about playing it with the MPE controllers is that you don't have to take your hand off the keys at all. It's part of the expression. It's basically becomes another variable in your performance, just like velocity is. How hard you hit the keys. Well, now it's where you're hitting the keys and what angle you're mushing them in. So let's have that control LFO to depth. There we go. So when I push the joystick forward, we should probably modulate a bit more than that. So that's a fun thing to do. I don't know if you can hear this, but there's a little bit of a release tail on it, and for leads, I really don't like that, especially solo leads. I want it to cut off right away. I mean, it's okay to add a little reverb behind it, sure, but overall, though, and that reminds me, actually, I'm going to turn on this aftermarket reverb here real quick. Just for later. Yeah, you can sort of hear it. I'm only adding this because, realistically, if you're playing this in a DAW, you're probably going to add effects to it afterwards anyways. So what I like to add on my leads are something with the mod wheel, and we already did that. Something else. Well, here's another thing we could do. We could add one more variable to the mod wheel. Let's try see how crazy it gets with FM. Right? Oop, that's delay. We don't want delay. We want FM. Well, that gets pretty nuts pretty quick. All right, so aftertouch. I like to use aftertouch with vibrato. I've shown this probably 3 or 4 times now, but those of you seeing this for the first time, this is going to be a lot of fun to do. We're probably going to have to use LFO 1 depth for this. So, and then we'll have rate somewhere in 50s or 70s or something. So we've done that. Aftertouch moves up the LFO depth. Now we need to assign the LFO to move the pitch, and that's how we get our vibrato. Where did it go? Global tune. There we go. There you go. I've noticed when we added the attack on the filter, it kind of killed our white noise. Another thing you could do is just say, forget it, I don't want filter. You can either have it half open and just no depth. And that's a good way of making sure that your highs don't get out of control if you want kind of a smooth lead, but that still has texture. If we want to add texture, look what we already have here. The depth of LFO2, remember, that controls the audio rate LFO. Well, let's boost this up a little, and we're going to start to get some rougher kind of fuzz. I want more vibrato when I press aftertouch, so I'm going to boost this up. Yeah, so it's easy to make patches on this. You don't even need to have this much stuff going on, but you can. That's the fun part. There's a lot of modulation opportunities here. Just remember, Mod W, that's mod wheel, and aftertouch, and have some fun with the LFOs. Your wave 1 and wave 2 are going to be kind of your bread and butter for creating movements, evolving textures, that kind of stuff. And then, of course, your filter is going to give it all the character and kind of help define what the patch is, whether it's a pad, brass, lead, you name it. See how we're doing on time here. Okay, I'd say it's just about time to go to the interview portion. Let me just double check that I'm not missing anything here. Oh, and in case you're wondering about the presets, they are the ones you were seeing. They are all brand new, and they will be available soon. So, but just make sure to check back with us. Like hit that bell notification for our YouTube channel, and we'll have a special announcement here in the coming days, and definitely look forward to that. So, okay. Next, our guest for this live stream, this is a pre-recorded interview, but nonetheless, it's going to be very fun. I can guarantee that. This is Eric Bateman. He's based out on the West Coast, in the Bay Area, and he is CEO of Keith McMillan Instruments. And he's going to start up by telling us a little bit about Keith McMillan Instruments, and then we're going to dive into what their current lineup of products offers for modal enthusiasts such as yourself and myself. So let's get to it.
My name is Eric Bateman. I'm the president of Keith McMillan Instruments, and Keith McMillan started our company in the late aughts. He, in the past, had run a company called Zeta Violins, I think the first real serious electronic violin company that was out there. Dave Matthews Band, Kronos Quartet, lots of people ended up using his instruments. He sold to Gibson and was a touring musician for a while, and decided to make some really cool instruments based on that experience, and that's where the company comes from. Anybody who's seen previous live streams probably seen me playing the Keyboard Pro 4 and possibly the Q Neo, and I just wanted to kind of ask you more about MPE in general for those guys that are kind of new to it. Modal synths, the 37 key and the 61 key all have FTAR key beds. So I think a lot of people are just wondering what sets MPE or MIDI polyphonic expression, what sets that apart from like a FTAR key bed, and why aren't we seeing this kind of thing getting put into a FTAR key bed? Yeah. The standard keyboard format it has been with synthesizers pretty much, since day one, or at least when Bob Moog started, putting them in as an alternate to modular synths, But the keyboard format obviously has hundreds of years of history behind it. The action of pushing a key down and getting pitch out of it, with synths, it's been a very digital experience, and the ways that you can add expression, usually we think of that in terms of pitch bend, we think of it in terms of modulation, and we think of it in terms of aftertouch. And on a FTAR key bed, really you just get velocity, and then pitch bend and mod are two wheels. And aftertouch is the same way. I mean, you can push down on any key, but it affects all the keys. And if you look on a Keyboard Pro, these are silicon keys, and so you can slide up and down the key.
Would that be mod wheel then?
Yeah, think of that as your mod wheel, but you can do it for every key. And it's applied polyphonically, right? And the same thing for pitch bend. And you can even do some pressure motions by pushing down, and that's applied polyphonically. And polyphonic aftertouch has been around a long time. It just hasn't been that universally applied. Part of the reason is because it's hard to control, and because for there's a very Newtonian, every action has a reaction with pressure, right? You push down and then you let up. My favorite motion with MPE is the slide, because you can start at the top, you can start at the bottom, you can pick where you are, and when you pick up, that it stays put, right? And that motion in a keyboard that physically moves, is actually hard, because where does the contact begin, right? Is it when the key's pressed down and then you can slide? But then you'd have to hold the key down if you wanted to start the slide halfway through. So it's really it's a new way of playing keys, and it's very expressive, but it's also very experimental. It's new.
Seeing that Keyboard Pro 4 and that silicon key tops, they're, if I'm not, they're really thin. For those of you who haven't seen kind of the side profile, but they're just incredibly thin. And what I had asked you a while back was why not just put these things and rest them on top of like a guitar keyboard, and then you get the best of both worlds. And your answer intrigued me, and you said you had a visual aid to kind of to show us today to kind of demonstrate how this is just a radically different. Wow, you weren't kidding when you said it's on a circuit board.
You can see there, and unlike a digital keyboard where you're really just plunking things on and off. Every one of these little copper sensors is an analog sensor, right? And this fabric here changes. Is instead of on and off, the way we can sense pressure and movement and wiggle is all because of all of those sensors, right? And so it'd be next to impossible to put this on an existing key bed. And like I mentioned, that action, of if the key's moving, it's hard to sense when the pressure begins or not. So it's really a different beast altogether.
What's been the time span of getting that? Looks like it's if you're converting to digital, that must be just tons and tons of raw data that you have to kind of curate and put into this focused kind of what we would call a good responsive key bed. Is probably, how long did that take? Because I play this out of the box and it feels pretty darn good. Minimal tweaking.
Yeah, it's no secret that we were delayed when we launched this product, and we spent a lot of time getting that responsiveness in. And I'm not a great keyboardist. I'm a drummer with a music degree, which is like a fish with a bicycle.
Oh man, I know. I'm a drummer myself and almost got one.
But the first time I touched a Keyboard Pro, it was really all about that finger drumming experience on a keyboard. And that was what really attracted me to it. And unlike other, competitive, and Rolly, we love those guys. They make a great product. The way that we're different, is having these discrete keys and having a dedicated slider for how much pitch bend you're controlling. As a drummer, pitch bend is hard for me to get right, but I love the slide and I love the percussiveness. And then if I want to do some pitch bend, I can add it. But this is what sets us apart.
Are those like macros? Those are basically macros. From what I remember in the app, you can kind of customize those if you were so inclined, right?
Yeah, you can customize the sliders but you have a lot of control over modulation rather than, and you can have the control over pitch too. But to me, the beginning of synthesis is in the modulation, is in the control of that modulation. That's where this instrument is, and as you mentioned, the playability of it. That's very hard to capture in a video.
Feeling is believing in this case, rather than ever simply seeing. I know we both love to see the cat claws come out for the Y.
Yeah.
It's much more interesting than polyphonic aftertouch, which I thought was the big sell because everybody just wants to play the Blade Runner theme. But yeah, it wasn't until you were like, "Hey, try pushing your hands up on those keys." I'm like, "Oh right, there's the Y axis."
Yeah,
and that actually leads me to my next question: is you guys make more products besides the Keyboard Pro 4? And given that our audience consists of guys that are at or near pro level, all the way down to guys that this is their first hardware synth or they're just getting into production. Yeah, they're probably only wondering, they're probably looking at your website right now and seeing that Keyboard Pro 4 comes in around maybe $900. And so what would you recommend for someone that's just getting into it that might have a lower budget set or just something to kind of get them introduced to it?
Well, the Cuneo, which I have here, we just, it's right now today in beta, but we have an app, and if you email us and ask nicely, we'll let you in on the beta. The Cuneo here has been out for almost 8 or 9 years now. And with MPE now, you can get those same motions and it maps automatically. So this is controlling the SKULPT 2, and if you look, got the pitch bend all the way on.
Got a scale built into that. Is that part of it?
Yeah. So this is on I think that was a harmonic minor scale, and the yellow keys are the octaves, and you can transpose and move that up. We're getting into the more melodic finger pad sort of formats, and it's a cool experience. And as you see, the Y, and if you want to do Z. And of course, there's aftertouch in there as well. And we've integrated this directly with SKULPT. So you'll notice if I change the patch on a SKULPT,
Oh, that's neat.
All of the parameters sync automatically. So yeah, we spent a lot of time on that, and we're adding that same support for Cobalt and Argon. And, we love all of the modal synths. They sound great. I think a SKULPT at, you guys have that less than $300 now, I think. That is an amazing sounding synth for the price.
Yeah, it's a little badass, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. And, writing this app for the QNEO to integrate it was really just such a fun experience because it's a great synth. And I think having a bigger control surface with some expressiveness really unlocks the voice engine.
An extension, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's if they had, I would imagine if they had that sort of thing built into the SKULPT, it would be a much different story in regards to price. But I guess SKULPT just serves as sort of the sound provider and the gateway drug to, to expanding from there. And I remember you sent me a QNEO shortly after I was raving about how much I love the Keyboard Pro 4. So I'm honored to have been chosen as one of your testers. And I have to say the QNEO is the first thing that struck me, and I'm not sure why I didn't see this when I was browsing your website, but is the Darth Vader thing like it looks like, I'm sorry, it just looks like Darth Vader on the bottom left.
Hold on. We're on YouTube. Are they going to demonetize you if we point out that there's a Disney logo on this thing? Or?
As long as you don't have the helmet flare. I think the flare really sells it. So if you had like an extension, that would be you'd be out of it. You'd be sued. Anyways. So there's the QNEO.
The QNEO, and that's like $260, $200, depending on who you buy it from.
Looks like you can use that as a. Does it have other templates? Can you use it like? Could I use that for triggering drums?
Yeah. We have presets for Ableton. There's a control template for Ableton. We support versions 8 through 11. So that's kind of the nice thing of having an older product is there's a lot of support.
I like Bitwig.
Yes,
I'm like one in 1,000 people that use it.
Hey, we have a lot of Bitwig fans, and in fact, we do have templates for Keyboard Pro 4 and QNEO for Bitwig that support MPE.
I use both, by the way. I'm not biased or anything. Okay, so then what if they want? Do you have a small keyboard? Do you have that? Do you have it in size small?
We do have, and I'll show it here real quick. It's not plugged in, but the Q Nexus. This guy has supported MPE before MPE was actually established. We had a mode called channel rotation that we're now renaming MPE because that's exactly what it is. And
as it was explained, you explained to me, MPE is sort of like that. It's kind of juggling what would have normally been dedicated to the 1 through 16 kind of instrument channels from old school general MIDI, and then it's repurposing them per note, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. And so we've got 25 keys. They each sense polyphonic pressure, which if you want poly aftertouch, we support that. But if you put it in MPE mode, that'll be your Z. And then we have something called tilt. It's not the same as Y. It's you push and it engages, and there's a threshold you can set. And then based on how much you rock the key forward or back, that translates to the same modulation, or we have a template for pitch bend if you want. And yeah, we're super top secret, but there's some improvements coming for this soon that in the form of a firmware update. So you heard it here first. That's oh yeah.
Does that have
super
pretty lights
secret.
like the QNEO?
Yes, it lights up white and blue LEDs.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. We are still in the world of single color LEDs, but who knows? Someday that might change.
With all these computers and the kids these days with the rainbow and the cycling, and just pick a color already.
Exactly.
I thought I saw one other cable. So that was the Q Nexus. Is that it looks sort of like the keyboard, the original keyboard. Is that kind of the predecessor or the successor?
Well, Q Nexus was first, and then we came out with a version that doesn't do poly aftertouch. We called it the keyboard. So for $96 US, you can get the keyboard. If you want MPE, polyphonic aftertouch, and we actually have a CV on here as well if you have any analog gear. So Q Nexus, is $194, I believe.
So just
US.
a heads up for any of you guys browsing Reverb right now, about to buy one for under $100. You might want to reconsider and just go to keithmcmillan.com. Those are such cool products. What else you got for us?
Well, I was thinking we might, in your YouTube comments or something, put a little coupon code for a week or two, and people can. We'll have some details in there for people who want to check that out if they want to get a special buy on some of this stuff.
That would be super slick. Yes. I guess, yeah. So viewers, be sure to check the comment, or be sure to check the description link. Thanks.
Yeah,
It's really cool. I'm sure our viewers are going to be thrilled. Cut back to that camera real quick. Actually, I think I forgot to ask you about this, and this was at my own request because I went on your site just before this interview and was like, "Wait, what's the K-Mix?" And I was like, "That's a freaking interface."
Yeah, the K-Mix is what you're hearing me through right now, and it is an 8 input, 10 output digital mixer. It is very compact and very thin. It's wedged here, but it's only about maybe an 1.25 inches thick in the back here.
Okay, so those are 1/4 inch jacks in the back.
Yeah, there's 2 XLRs, 6 quarters, and that's your inputs. And then it's also a multi-channel audio interface. So 8 in, 10 out audio interface. It's got built-in EQ, reverb, compression, gate. It's really just a great, slick, portable digital mixer. There's no moving parts, so it's all just with our touch faders. Are
those level and is that level and live feed, or can you switch between the two, or is it mostly just level?
Well, there's level, there's reverb send, there's trim, you've got your stereo auxes. It'll even actually mix in surround sound. So if you're doing, with the 8/4 inch outputs and then the headphone jack, you can get up to 8.1 surround sound mixing with this. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Well, Eric, thank you again so much for showing these amazing products.
Yeah, you can find out more at our website, keithmcmillan.com. We've got new software updates to check out. If you have any questions, about using modal gear with our controllers, hit us up too, because we have lots of experience. So, yeah.
I'm no doubt gonna run into you again, and would love to have you back on the show. And I'll be in touch because I'm probably going to be doing something with QNeo and SKULPT here in the coming weeks because we have something special in store, as a matter of fact. So.
Love it.
All right. Well, until next time, Eric. Thanks again.
Yeah. Thanks, James.
All right. Well, that was a good time, wasn't it? I'm sure we're going to have him back. He's an awesome guy, and he knows so much about. He actually used to own a music studio back in the day. Yeah, just fascinating fellow. Okay, so an update or a reminder for those of you who have not posted a comment and you want to be entered in the drawing for an ASK.Video scholarship or subscription. Post up now. Okay, this is the final call for everybody who wants to get entered in that drawing. So, yeah, definitely do that. Okay, so next, let's talk about pads. In the context of Argon and Cobalt, you might own an Argon, you might own an Argon 8, or you might own a Cobalt 8, or maybe you own both. And this is going to be useful regardless of whether you have one or the other or both. Because I've noticed something. I've been doing a lot more production lately, and with both Cobalt and Argon, and the natural, I would say, the characteristics of a wavetable synthesizer, sonically, and the characteristics of a analog synth differ so much that you can almost tell when one is going to work and when one is not going to work, or when it might be better to use one or the other. So I wanted to play a couple of pad examples for you and kind of highlight some of the strengths at what it's really good at doing. And I wanted to start with Argon because I think this is the strangest pad I've ever made. It's not particularly like lush or fat or big, but it's incredibly atmospheric. And it's like a less original name would be like ambient organ. But well, I'll just play it here, and you can decide. I think it's going to be over. Yeah, I renamed it to Cold Playin'. So, on, it looks like I'm still, I never went into the app. Oh, well. On the Argon, in particular, the way the wavetables sound, they're gonna come in on the frequency range a little different than something as rich, harmonically rich as like a sawtooth. On a Cobalt, a Sawtooth, I mean, you can't get any more harmonically rich. That's why it's a subtractive synth, or that's why, the traditional, classic analog synths of yesteryear were all subtractive. You take what is a harmonically rich waveform oscillator and then start pulling away from it through a filter, or whether you're doing algorithms like, sync or pulse width and stuff like that. With a wavetable, as soon as you start seeing these nutty shapes, right? They're going to come in and, either like high, a little bit boosted highs or a little bit more emphasis on mids. And rather than seeing this as a detriment to the sound, like, oh, there's something missing, it's just too thin, don't think of it that way. Think of it like, how is this going to fit in my mix? And a lot of I don't know about you, but I like to have my mixes have plenty of bass, low end. Everything is about low end these days. It's, I think if you compared a track from 20 years ago to a dance music or modern pop music to today, staggering difference in volume, obviously loudness wars, but in bass as well as upper mids, or I should say upper mid mid bass, kind of the punch frequency, and we have compression to thank for that partly. So oftentimes, if I go and reach for this lush kind of analog fat pad, much of the time I end up actually kind of drowning in, or kind of, it can be a little bit too much. So that's why I say if you're going to be doing, if you need something in the background that supports your mix that might not necessarily be part of the main feature, using a different kind of oscillator, or in this case wavetable, is going to work to your advantage. And then all you have to do is dial in some of the effects. And I wanted to show you the effects chain I'm using here. It's one of my kind of go-tos. Now, rarely, I don't always use the reverb, although if you really need a very, very long tail, you can really crank up the time, or, you can get different kind of effects with it. But I usually use reverb in conjunction with chorus and ping-pong delay, and I kind of set them up in this order. You don't have to be in this order, but look at this. The FX level is really high, and these are all three of them are way beyond halfway. So more than not, we're hearing the effects. We're not hearing the actual, without it. We're not hearing a dry mix at all, well, hardly at all. And here, I'll play it for you real quick here. Now, if I had to guess, if I just stumbled across this, I'd think this is more likely to be a bass. But if you play it up high, it's really not that harsh, and that's a good sign, because sometimes you can stumble upon wavetable presets, and they'll sound phenomenally cool down low, right? That growl or that crunch. But then when you play them up high, they sound like an angry wasp or like an oboe, right? So introduce some wet effects, and you have something entirely different on your hands here. Another quick tip, use fifths. Some of these wavetables actually have kind of harmonic frequencies sort of in them, but don't be afraid to just, crank an oscillator up to, up to, what just happened? Up to a different frequency. Perfect fifths always work. That's kind of what I like to do. And you can create, and it'll create some very interesting chords. Let me play you one more example here. Actually, that I'd say that's probably good enough. If I could find the other one, we'll do Snow Globe. Yeah. Oh, and yeah, the unique advantage to argon, in the case of pads, obviously, if we were saying, working with basses, I would say it's the distortion. That's a big advantage, right? But with pads, you're not going to be using much distortion. So look at this. This is always here, spread, right? You'd actually have to pick specific algorithms in Cobalt to be able to use the spread feature, obviously, because Cobalt has all those different kind of oscillator engines, or wavetable, or rather analog, virtual analog algorithms, or extended analog algorithms. So that's a big advantage. So modulating the spread is often a kind of a go-to trick to get some more depth. Whether you do it with a joystick, doing it like that, or aftertouch, that usually works pretty well. I'll give you an example here. I'll just assign it on the fly here to spread. So let's decrease spread almost to nothing, right? You can pretty much hear it open up. We could get the width even higher, and let's go up to unison 2, and then you can really hear it spread out. Whoopsies, not unison. Sorry, stack. And I'll show you what I've been doing here. Right there, spread is at 0, and then I have aftertouch to spread right there. So, yeah. All right, I'm going to switch back over to Cobalt here. There we go. All right, let's talk about Cobalt, the lovely sounding Cobalt. I wanted to emphasize some specific things about Cobalt. I'll give you kind of the main takeaway points I have jotted down in the notes. First, recap. The Argon, modulation emphasis obviously is on wavetables and evolving sounds, and finding wavetables that complement your mix, that fit in the frequency range that makes sense to be fit into. So if you have room in the mids or just room in the highs, perfect. Go find a sizzling wavetable. And then the effects will really help the soundstage. They'll soften up those some of those abrasive wavetables that sound cool and you wish you could use them, but they're just not working. Well, put in some chorus and crank the effects to max, and you're going to get a much smoother sound out of that. And they're a little bit easier to mix in than say a full-bodied lush analog pad that just wants to blast through your mix and be the star of the show. And what I had written down for Cobalt, the modulation emphasis is obviously on the extended analog algorithms. And for pads, for me, it is a mission of finding harmonics, finding the sweet spots, and then trying to determine what I want to do with it. If it's a sweet spot that is easily reachable, well, how do I put this? If it's something like sync, you can have smooth movement, sweeping throughout, right? You could have a constant movement with something like sync. I'll give you an example here. We'll just go to a init patch here, and then let's find the algorithm that has some sync in it here. That's pulse width. Well, that's another good example right here. Okay, let's just assign LFO1. Let's assign LFO1 to oscillator 1A, right? And if you want to have it feel more natural, make sure to turn this to free running, right? Now remember, LFO1 is global. LFO2 and LFO3 are polyphonic. All right, so what I was getting at with the LFOs is, or rather with the oscillators, is that this movement right here is you're going to always find pleasant frequencies no matter where it is, right? There's other algorithms. Let's switch over to oscillator 2. There's other algorithms that are not the case at all. Look at this. It's abruptly changing, right? So you can't really have a free-running LFO doing that unless you just want some scatterbrained kind of pad that has a lot of kind of sound effects, which is cool, but not if you're trying to have something that's a little bit more grounded in practicality or a little bit more accessible. But sometimes you'll come across a really neat sounding sweet spot, and you're like, I want to use that. And that's when the judgment call comes into play. Of well, do I want it to just sit on this sweet spot and be part of the sound? That sounds like a fifth to me. All right, yeah, that's nice. Although this is nice no matter what. It's just another sync, right? Let's give ourselves a challenge here. Okay, perfect. That sounds great, right? You wouldn't want to have something moving around this. We just keep it as is, right? Let's check our octaves here. So that seems like it's jumping. The sync gives us the illusion it's jumping up or kind of morphing into different octaves, a higher up and then a lower down. But this is the kind of thing I do with pads. So I find one that has, something that can move and evolve, and then another one where you're finding that unique textures and looking for a unique texture or timbre, as our wonderful leader Philip Tyson pointed out on the introduction of Cobalt in that video. And the way he described it is perfect, because that's exactly what I like doing is finding just those things that kind of tickle your ear that you haven't quite heard before. It sounds familiar, but it's kind of new. Or like something you'd hear out of somebody that's been, spaghetti monstering a modular synth for the last 3 hours, and they finally hit a sweet spot. And then, so after this, your next step is really just jumping up the release and deciding whether you want a soft attack or an abrupt attack. And that's one thing I wanted to point out, too, that I did not have in my notes, which is that there is some versatility to having a sharp attack on pads. It doesn't necessarily mean it's not a pad if there's no soft attack. And they can be very useful for stuff like that. If you have the ability to play a pad and then use something like a sustain pedal and then kind of riff up top with your right hand, You can't really hear that because I have a soft attack. Well, let's bring that back and I'll give you another example. Much neater, right? We close off the filter a little bit and soften that up and then just add some effects. So we'll add a little ping pong delay just like we did before. Get that stereo image nice and wide. We'll bring the effects level down right around the middle. And maybe a little bit of depth on the filter envelope. Let's see what I'm doing here. There you go. Depth on the filter envelope, ping pong delay, middle of the road for levels. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, just don't always look for the sawtooth and the filter sweep for your pads. Look for those unique textures and timbres, because this thing has so much to offer and so many of those kind of weird, fun and very melodic sweet spots all over the place. And don't forget to use some. Aftertouch and mod wheel from time to time. Make sure I just hit up on all my main points. Regarding the SKULPT from earlier, if you are interested in buying one, but you're coming up the dead ends and you're finding that your main go-to store has limited supply or none, there's going to be an announcement regarding the future of SKULPT in the coming days. So be sure to check back to our Facebook page and to Modal Electronics, or check Sonic State and those other press sites, wherever you get your news from. There will be more soon. So yeah, just hold tight on that. Okay, so I think we probably have to announce the winner now for the giveaway. The winner is Jack Kesselman. Congratulations, Jack. Be sure to send us an email. That's I believe it's marketing@modalelectronics.com, and send your let's see. Yeah, just send them an email, let them know you're the winner, and they'll get any additional info that they need for you. Also, the coupon code for the Keith McMillan Keyboard Pro 4 specifically, he's bumping $200 off the price with a secret code here, and I'm going to read it off to you. But if someone hasn't already posted up in the comments, that code is There's a lot of chat that happened before I. Well, people at Modal who are in the comments section, if you could just repost that code, or here, you know what? It's probably right here. There it is. Okay, so it's going to be Modal with a capital M dash and then capital KB 214. All right, that's capital M for modal, and then dash capital K capital B 214. And that'll get you a $200 discount off the Keyboard Pro 4. Yeah, I think that's pretty much going to wrap up our live stream for today. If you guys have questions or comments, I'm probably going to jam out here for another few minutes just in case anybody's having a good chat or getting some help via the chat section. And come to our check out our Facebook page, hit up modalelectronics.com. We have a monthly newsletter, and of course, like and subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, we'll see you on the next live stream, or I'll see you on the next Modal Minute or Quick Dive. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. Bye bye.